Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm popping by and we're going to create a journal page. Now I've got this on one of the pages, so I thought I'd create something on the opposite page. You often see me sort of go through my journal and I decide to create something that coordinates with each other on the opposite pages. It doesn't have to coordinate, but I do that so that each page sort of works together when I'm doing the journal. So I love doing it. So what I thought we would do is we'd create a page on the opposite page. This doesn't have to be the same imagery, but sort of the colours is what I'm thinking of. Right. I'm afraid I've not tidied anything away because I wasn't around yesterday. So I've not tidied any of my stuff away. Naughty, but we'll just get on with it. There's often marks on my page as well. I don't worry about it. These pages in the Pink Pig journal that I stock, they're amazing. The quality is fantastic, just wonderful. Now, if you want to protect the pages underneath, I don't tend to bother. If you want to protect the pages underneath, you can put a piece of copy paper underneath there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mask off the area around the page, and I should always pull my scissors out, but I don't. So I'm just going to mask off. I'm using my low tack tape. Whatever size low tack tape you've got is absolutely fine. There we go. You know, when I come to pull this off, you know by now I never remember which order I did it in. There we go. And then let's just mask that off as well. So I've got this area here that I'm then going to work in. So let's move that out of the way. I've got paints and everything on my desk because I'm multitasking. Probably not a good idea, but I always end up multitasking. I'm terrible. So what I'm going to do is grab my blending brush. And I'm going to use one of the largest blending brushes that I do. These are in packs of 5. So I'm going to use the large blending brush. And I'm going to, I've got the low tack tape on there, so even if I apply ink on the edge here, it's not going to go on the edge of the page. So I'm just going to apply the Hickory Smoke Distress Oxide ink just onto my page. And sometimes it looks like you're not actually putting anything down, but the blending brushes, once you've sort of coated them in ink, they have a good layer of ink on there, and you don't have to hurt your wrist. If I hold it further down, if I hold it up like this, I'm going to get a light layer of ink, a very light blend. If I bring my hand down, I just then get a little bit of a darker blend. So let's just go around the edges. So I'm working on creating a page that coordinates with my previous page. And sometimes what I do is I come back to the edge and I make the edge a little bit darker. It draws that eye in to the centre of that piece. Now, if it plays with your head a little bit because you've got ink all around the sides, what I tend to do, these wipes are almost dry, I just tend to sort of wipe that off and then you can see what you've got. So if that sort of messes with your head a little bit, doesn't take much to mess with my head, trust me. So if you just wipe that off, you can then see where you're going. Right, I'm then going to take let's grab the grunge stencil. I've already got that stencil out. Well. So I've already used this stencil so much, it's really grubby. So I'm going to use use this side. And I'm going to use fossilised amber distress oxide ink. And I'm going to sort of apply this around my stencil, not sort of thinking about it in a regimented way. So I've got the fossilised amber on there, and if I spritz this with water, and what I'm going to do is just wipe the bottom there, just to prevent me getting a straight line. This is totally dry. And then I'm going to place this sort of around about there, I think. And as you can see, my page is lumpy and bumpy. And what's hilarious is I've got a kitchen towel, but I haven't unwrapped it. Let's move that out of the way. So just to add to the sound effects, I'm unwrapping my kitchen towel. At least I remember to bring one up, which is more than I usually do. And I use a piece of kitchen towel just because, one, I can hold my hand on there and I'm not getting moisture all over my hand, but I can hold that stencil on there so that it sort of makes its impression. But it will also soak up any moisture. Can you see there's a little bit of ink on there? So it soaks up any of that moisture as I press it down. I can still hold it in place and just see, just lovely. And we've got a lovely background. You've got ink on there you could still use. So I'm going to come down here, just so, mainly so that I don't dip my fingers in it. Because again, that's me all over. There we go. So you can then add this little bit of ink that's on here to another card if you wish, because you could definitely make another impression. Some of mine is paint on mine, but you could definitely add another, another impression to another piece of card. I'm then going to grab my heat tool. I'm just going to screw this piece of paper up, just so that it's not in my way. And then I'm just going to dry this. Just so that I've got no wet layers whilst I'm trying to work. And you can see we've got a beautiful bit of stenciling on there. Just love that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with a little bit more of hickory smoke. I seem to must be having a theme with this because I've been using it in a different project. My brayer is in all those colours. So let's just pick a little bit more ink up. And I'm going to come round the edges and just make that a little bit darker. And it's up to you how dark you make those edges. You don't have to have them dark if, if that's not what, you don't like it too dark, but I do like a darker edge. And that will come to life as we remove the low tack tape. I don't know whether your desk is like mine, but I have got chargers, I've got cables everywhere. And the only reason I'm wiping that low tack tape is so that I don't get myself in too much of a mess. There we go. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to take my vase stencil, or that's the plan, if I can remember which pack it's in. It must be in that one. So I'm going to take, is it in this one? You have to remember, I have to try and remember what releases I've had. There it is. So I'm going to take the vase stencil, and it's a really good size vase, that is. And now I can decide where I want to place this, whether I want it on this side or this side. And I'm going to go for this side here. And you do get the cutout as well, so you can use the cutout. And I'm going to use the hickory smoke once again. And I'm going to blend more of that hickory smoke now, just around the stencil. And you can see I'm going in a few times just to add the hickory smoke. So sort of a nice dark layer there. Let's lift this up and we have the impression on our stencil. Again, you've got lots of ink on there, so you could spritz that and then add that to another piece of card. So you then get another vase template. And also, if you wish, you've got the piece that goes on the top as well. There we go. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add a little bit of shading towards the bottom. So we'll grab my brush, which probably won't be clean because I never know what I've got on there. So I'll have a little bit of water, and just to give that a little bit of grounding, I'm going to add my Inktense pencil, which is the grey, and just add a little bit of that. And let's just bring this down here a bit, just so we bring that shading down. And this card is sensational. It really works really nicely. So now that vase has got some grounding, so I've got some water here. I'm just going to rinse that brush because I don't want to add colour. Let's just take a little bit off there, and then I'm going to add a little bit of water here. So if I add water to it, I can then take the colour away. So I can just use a little bit of water, and I can take some of that colour away. Let's just, and the longer you sort of give that oxide ink, it'll continue reacting with that moisture, and your bleached out area will just get a little bit lighter. It's always good to sort of work with clean water. Let's have, and if you find it's running away with you, there's too much moisture, just have a piece of kitchen roll there as well. And it's hilarious because there's hardly any water on that one. So I'm just pretending there's a base of the vase there. So I'm just sort of bleaching out a little bit of that area. I can always come in and add my touches of white, no problem at all. That's nice and easy to do. But whilst I've used those oxides, it allows me to do that bleaching out. And it sort of gives me a guide where I can add a little bit of lightness to my vase. I can just add a little bit more lightness to that. And I can tell that it's bleaching out because my water is going a definite grey colour. There we go. So we'll just leave that now, because there's still moisture in there and it'll still continue to work. So we'll just leave that for a few moments. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab our, it's like, which pile have you put everything in? I'm going to grab our little poppy stamp and the jar of wishes. So I'm going to take the jar of wishes first, which is TE26. So we'll take TE26 first, and we'll take this one here. Now I'm going to draw in the stems myself, so I'm just going to use the sort of flower head is what I'm going to use. Press that down there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use my Hickory Smoke Distress Oxide ink, and I'm just going to get the flower shape with the grey, and then I can decide where I want to add the floral. Now I didn't even check, which is sort of not too good. I've got the shape of my flower there in the grey here, but I didn't check if what lumps and bumps I've got underneath this, but it doesn't seem too bad, so we're okay. So we'll just take the flower head again, and then I can add another one sort of going that way. And I can add my own stems wherever I wish. And then let's grab the smaller one off TE 26. Can't even remember my own numbers. Doing really well. So I'm just inking this just to get the flower shape. So let's have that sort of, do you like how I can't make my mind up? Again, I have the flower shape. Now, once you've used that oxide ink, just remember to give your stamps a little bit of a wipe so that you don't leave that oxide ink on there. Mainly because then if you come to your VersaFine Clair, your Nocturne, if you leave the Distress Oxide on there, that will mean that your VersaFine Clair won't be crisp. So let's put 26 back. And then we'll take these here from the TE39. So I've now got smaller heads, and I'm just going to use the head from the poppy stamp. Let's just add that there. Just want the shape because I can add the colour afterwards. Let's add one sort of dripping down. Oh, I'll just put the stamp the wrong way up. I'll have one there. So we've sort of got our arrangement to some degree. So let's take that off. And then what I'm going to do is use some pencils. Don't know whether I've got the pencils that I want at the moment because I've got that many colours here. That's lemon yellow. What colour don't want any of them. I want sort of an ochre colour. So let's grab my pencils again. We've got yellow ochre. I've got lemon yellow. And we are going to want a grey, but something a bit sort of darker. The goldenrod is a little bit more orangey. So let's grab a grey. I always end up with hundreds of pencils out, but that's me all over. There we go. And then we have a little look at our pencils, and then we decide whether we want to sharpen them or not. And that one's no use to me without it being sharpened. So we're just giving the pencils a little bit of a sharpen, and then I will go through the colours with you. Just so you can see what I'm using. The fan definitely needs to go on. It's very humid today, so we have to make sure we're nice and cool. There we go. So what we've got is sort of our dark colour, which is the grey, which is 50% warm grey, PC1054. It doesn't matter whether you're going to colour with your oxide, you still want a dark and then layer your colours up. So I've got a warm grey, 1054. I'm then got a gold blend. No. Goldenrod, PC1034. Gold blend. Talking about a coffee or something. I'm just making up words. Oh dear. And yellow ochre, PC942. I think I'm a bit delirious. I had an anaesthetic yesterday. I think I'm just delirious. Perhaps it's dangerous to do a video. And then lemon yellow, PC915. I mean, I'm dangerous at the best of times, but I'm just making up names now. So we're going to colour these in. So I'm going to come in to the poppy, and I'm just going to just sort of add a little bit of the grey, and I'll just the pretend stems, they don't have to be precise. So then I'm going to sort of go around the whole floral and just give a dark edge, just a little bit of a dark edge to that, and pretend there's two. There we go. And we'll have a little bit of a stem here. I don't like my stems being super straight, because when they go in my vase, they're never super straight. So just adding this warm grey just around the edges, so then I've got the shape of my floral. Because even though I've drawn them, when you come to draw them a second time, they're never exactly the same. So I love having the stamps. So let's just bring this down. Bring that down. And then we'll have this stem here. So I'm sort of reinstating the outer line, if you like. So I like it when some flop over the side. So I've sort of got that dark line, and it sort of reinstates the line to my florals. Now, I'm no botanical artist, I'm no professional colourist. What I do is what I enjoy. Something simple, nothing too complicated. So I'm then going to come to the one I made up my own name, Goldenrod, which is PC1034. What did I call it? Oh dear me. So I'm going to come in with this lovely sort of goldeny, orangey colour. And you can see that I'm not coming in, as always, I repeat myself, I'm not coming in too heavy-handed with that. So let's add a little bit to the stem, a little bit. I'm quite relaxed when I'm crafting. You know, if there's a mistake, there's a mistake. It doesn't matter. Just embrace those mistakes. I'm sure we can get round some things. So we've got that first layer down there. Then I'm going to come to this yellow ochre. I love this colour, this yellow ochre colour. And just come in with that yellow ochre. Again, just layering nicely. And because the page is smooth, it's not lumpy and bumpy, it's also lovely to use my pencils on. And then to give a little bit of lightness and brightness, we're using the lemon yellow PC915. Again, if you want to use your Ecoline pens, or you want to use your watercolours, or maybe you want to use something that you haven't used for a while, then use that. There we go. There we go. So we've just we have the basis of our florals. You know, it needs a little bit more oomph. So I'm going to come in with that warm grey and just add a little bit of the warm grey just at the base here. So just at the base of the floral, just adding a little bit of that grey just at the base there, just so it's a little bit darker. And I'm adding a little bit of like a triangle at the bottom. There we go. And you can add some twiddly bits in if you want. I'm not bothered if you want to add some of your little twiddly bits that you just draw on or something. I'm just making up stems just so it looks quite natural. What's that there? So we've done the grey. So then I'm going to come back to the golden rod, which I obviously cannot say, PC1034. And then I'm going to come in with a little bit more of that colour. So another layer of that colour, so it sort of becomes richer. We fill out those gaps. We don't fill out, we fill in those gaps. Listen, I told you I was dangerous. Just blame it on the anaesthetic. So just then come in into the grey with that colour. Just lovely. We can add a little bit of this colour as well to our stems. It's our arrangement. We can do whatever we want. So just come into that grey. Oh, do you know, it's lovely with this fan on. Doesn't take much for this redhead to just be too warm. And then I'm going to come in with the ochre colour, the yellow ochre. Let's come in with that yellow ochre. And we will add touches of white as well, just so that we can make that pop a little bit more. And then with the lemon yellow, that just gives that a little bit of brightness. I'm just adding that sort of the edge of my little poppies. And then I'm going to come in with another layer of that colour, but you can see this is now dried, and then we can add a little bit more touch of lightness there as well. So let's grab, I don't want the grey anymore, I'm going to go straight to the goldenrod colour and just add another layer of that golden colour. Just add then we'll come to the yellow ochre. I do love the yellow ochre, just a lovely colour. And then we can look at my thing moving. Then we can come into our lemon yellow. Just to add a little bit of brightness to that design. I'm obviously going to go around the edges, but let me just grab, I'm always grabbing something. So just bear with me while I always forget what they're called, so I'm going to get them out because I can't remember the name. And I've only got a small room, so you have to move furniture. Those, how do you sell it? Carbothalo. But when I want to remember the name, I can never remember the name. I've had these a long time. I think it was before COVID. But there's a white one in here. I think there used to be a sharpener in here as well. That sharpener might not be in here now though. Oh, it is. Do you know I've got my sharpener in here? How good am I? So these are chalk pastel pencils, and I'm going to, you can use your pan pastel pencil, but if you want an easy way to just add a little touch of white, the pan pastel, it's very easy to sort of lay down. It's not difficult to lay that pastel down, and I don't set it with anything. Just rub that with my finger a little bit. You can use a paper stump or an acrylic stump. And then let's just have a little bit going down the centre, just so there's a little bit of a shine. Just so there's a little bit of light, just through the centre. You know, really professional little scribble. But I can see that I've got that sort of lightness in there, and it's a lovely, easy way just to add a touch of white and just blend it out with your finger. Just easily blend it out, and I can sort of add another layer of white with my Posca paint pen or with my bleed proof. You can also use this white just to add make it lighter at the top if you wish. I like to use my Posca pen, but it works quite nicely just there as well. So you can also add a little bit of lightness down your stem as well with the pastel pencil. Right, but I ought to colour a design with these Carbothello chalk pastel pencils, because they're very forgiving and very easy to sort of lay down. You know, that you just literally, again, you add layers of the pastel and then you can just smudge it. But this, and just add a little bit of, you can add a little bit of paint if you want, just to give a little bit of more brightness. You can also add Posca pen, just to give a little bit more brightness should you wish. But I need to use them and colour with them a little bit more. I use them a lot during COVID, so I really need to do that. Let's move those out of the way just for the minute. And then I'm going to use, where are you? I have to remember the numbers so that you're not waiting too long, but that doesn't always happen. I'm going to use TE35. So let's take that TE35. And I'm just going to use this little sort of blobby stamp here. Let's put that little poppy back and take this little blobby stamp. Move those out of the way. And I'm just going to use that grey. It'll just make enough of a mark for me, no problem at all. Trying to make it, because I don't want to sort of do any masking. I want to make it nice and simple. No masking really. So I've got sort of a blobby bit there. It's a professional term, you know, blobby bit. And I'm just going to add. So at the moment they're just sort of sticking out nowhere. Don't worry about that, that's absolutely fine. Just adding a few of those blobby bits, as I call them. There we go. Can't have an even number, that just doesn't work for me. There we go, just so I can add them. Then you can either use your Prismacolor, or you can use anything that you've got to hand. So I'm going to take the yellow in the Stabilo All, they're not Stabilo All, Stabilo Carbothello. I'm just making names up, you're just going to have to forgive me. And then I'm just going to take this yellow pencil, pastel pencil, chalk pastel pencils, and then I'm going to come in and just go over those with a little bit, and it takes seconds to lay that down, just to add those blobby bits. Just adding a little bit of a stem. I can come in, I'm going to add a bit more colour to that, just so that you don't want them sort of floating, you want them to look like you've thought about the stems as well. Then we'll come in, I'll get that pastel-y pencils again, and I can bring in a little bit the orange colour. And the lay down is very simple, but it just brings a little bit of brightness to the page. Works really nicely. I can bring a little bit of just a bit of that pastel there. But I've now got these sort of blobby bits. We've forgotten the stem to that. There we go. Just so that we've got this, we've got the stems then that are coming from those. And what you do with your pastel pencils is it's about layering. You need to sort of add layers of those pastel pencils, and it becomes brighter and brighter. And I think we'll just have a little bit of a deeper touch as well. And you can just smudge these with your finger just to give a little bit of a touch to the flowers with that pastel pencil. Again, you don't have to do that. You can add a little bit of paint if you wish. I'm always determined that if I've got products, I'm going to use them. So I now want, because I've just seen how that red works, I'm just going to add, what I've got here is crimson red, and I'm just going to add a little bit of that crimson red just at the base here. And because I've not once pressed on too hard, I can still layer that pigment down. So I've got this crimson red, which is PC924, which is your Prismacolor. And because I've not once come in too heavily, it's allowed me to lay down some more of that pigment. Let's come in with the ochre and just blend the edges a little bit. So I'm quite sort of free with the colouring. Don't want to bring this up a little bit. And I wouldn't be able to do this if I'd have come in too heavy-handed with my pencils. There's no way I could add another layer. It just wouldn't let me. Just, there we go. So I'm just coming in now with the golden colour, golden rod, and I'm just going to add, whoops, a little touch of that yellow. Now what I can do to bring a little bit more sort of brightness to that floral, if I take my yellow Posca pen, so we just hope that this yellow is here, there we go. So I've got the yellow Posca pen, and I can just bring a little bit more brightness just around here. Just with the Posca pen, just a little bit more brightness. I can also add a few splatters of the yellow just to the background, just to add to that. And it doesn't matter if it goes on my outer bit, because I'm going to pull those off. Then we'll just give that Posca pen a little dry, because I do want to add a little bit of embossing, and I can't add embossing if I've got moisture on there, so you do need to make sure that that's dry. So just give that a thorough dry, and this card in this journal is superb in my opinion. Absolutely fantastic. Again, as I always repeat, there is no point using your anti-static bag if your page is soaking wet. It won't work. So just make sure that your page is not soaking wet. I'll take the Versamark. So we'll take our Versamark, and I bet you can't guess which stamp I'm going to go for. So we'll just put our little trees back. 35. And then we'll go to TE11. Surprise, surprise. And the stamp's so well used that it's out continually. You can see, look at that. It's because I hold it in my hand. So we're going to take a little bit of that Versamark. And then I'm going to add a little bit of white that I can't see. And by now you know I won't have copier paper. And what you have to remember to do is close the cupboard door so that you don't walk into it when you've opened it. Something else I always do. I'm leaving the fan on. It'll have to blow because I'm absolutely boiling. No, we'll turn the fan off because it didn't even hit any of the area. So it just blew straight off. So that was hilarious. So let's just... So I've got a little bit here. Let's add a little bit more, a little bit further up. So it comes across the florals a little bit. Bring that in. And because that text is lovely and fine, it isn't overpowering, it's lovely. So it's really good. So shall we have a look at that and just see what it looks like initially? And you do realise I'll moan I'm too hot when I use the heat tool. I'll hold this up so you can have a glance at the detail close up. Down here. The white embossing just adds a little bit more brightness, and it pushes, because it's on the surface, it pushes everything else back. Can't even see if I've even melted that. But let's hold this up just so that you can see. I've got the embossing here and just here as well. You can see there's some lovely embossing there. So I'm actually going to add a little bit more because I really like that. So use that Versamark again. There we go. Let's add a little bit more down here. And then we'll add a little bit more embossing powder. Where did I put the other? Oh, over here. I'll just place that back so it's out of the way, because then I don't go and spill it everywhere, which is what I normally do. Don't ask me why I'm doing the bottom one before the top one. There is no rhyme or reason. Just lovely. Let's go here. Oh yes, that just looks lovely. And just so that you can see this, you've got that embossing in there. Just wonderful. I'm then going to add some shading around the outer edge of that vase, and you can see the Inktense pencil is a lot stronger in colour. And we'll just blend this out. Just so that it's got a stronger edge just at this end. And I don't use much water. But we've already got the oxide under there. And the yellow. So you just need to sort of be aware of that. We're then going to give this a little bit stronger now. Now we've got that colour on there, we can see a little bit more water. We can see where we were going. Just so you can see, it's a little bit more grounded as well, just so that we can add that. Let's just dab up, there we go. Just so that you've got that a little bit more grounded. I'll just give that a dry, so we don't break that page down anymore. Again, you could still come in with, if you don't want to use the Inktense, again, the chalk pastel pencils is the grey in here. Do you like the person, the fat? I am a faffy. There is actually a grey in here, a light grey, so you can add some of that pastel over the top just to smooth that out a little bit. And also in the pastel pencils there is a black, so you can add a little bit of that black as well. And with the pastel pencils, you're not adding more moisture, you're just adding a little bit more depth. There we go. Let's add a little bit more depth to that vase. And with the pastel pencils, you can just look, they come off. If you don't want to do them with your finger, you can do it with a paper stump, a cotton bud, whatever you've got. Let's add a little bit of So here's the paper stump. You even get one in these pencils. And you can, obviously with your pastel pencils, you can rub a bit away as well. So when you've got pastel pencils, there's a little eraser that, as you can see, Tracy's opened frequently. But you can use like a putty rubber or whatever. This feels like that. And you can actually rub little bits away just to give highlights as well. So it's really handy because you can rub bits away and it'll just give highlights. So great fun. I need to do some more with those. And some of the colours are just wonderful. Right. Tracy, stop faffing. That's me all over. So then I'm going to use, let's place this back. Oh, before I do that, I'm going to take Morning Mist. And these are all the colours that I stock because I use them so much. I'm going to take Morning Mist and I'm just going to take a little bit of this text and I'm going to bring a little bit of the darker Morning Mist to the background, and then I'll just leave the ink pad upside down on my acrylic block, on my non-stick craft sheet. Come on, woman. And just leave the ink all there. So I'm going to add a little bit. And it's funny how a little touch just brings something to it. And that grey brings a little bit more oomph to the background. So just a touch more. Oh, yes, yes, yes. So what I'm doing is I'm tilting the ink pad. So I'm just using the edge of the ink pad. And then I can curl the stamp and just add a little bit of stamping by using my finger to stamp with, using the Morning Mist. And if you don't want to sort of have your packaging all filthy, just give that a rub over. Not that my packaging isn't filthy, let me show you. It's completely filthy. It is the most used stamp ever. Right. Let's put that down. I then want the sunflower. There we go, because I want the little bird. And it's that one. Is it that one? Yeah, I have a strange thing where I like the little birds to be facing the flowers as if they're looking at him. I know it's a bit odd really, isn't it? I'm going to take that Nocturne ink and add the ink. And then I'm going to add the little birdie just here. And again, like I should check, I've not checked what lumps and bumps are on the page underneath, which really you should check the lumps and bumps to see if there's anything on there, and I'm okay. But you should really check those. Just place that back. Yep. 33. And I'm just going to give the little bird a dry, just so that it's not sitting on the surface. It is actually dry. Actually, I need an odd number. That text is, it's not an odd number. It's got sort of, so I'm just taking the Morning Mist again. I just want to add a little bit more. That's better. Just extend it down a little bit. And it's funny, I never know how long something is taking because I'm so engrossed. just lovely. If you want to, you can go to your poppy stamp, and these little poppy, I'm not going to, but there's these little seed heads. You can add those as well if you wish. So there's lots of options for you to sort of add to your arrangement. And then I'm going to use my Posca pen. You don't have to use your Posca pen. You can use the bleed proof if Posca pens aren't for you. So again, because I did some colouring beforehand, you can see my Posca pen, it's not clean. There we go. And we've got these waxy layers on here, so you need to be mindful. Now, it does need sort of layers on there of that white. Let me just grab my bleed proof. You can use your bleed proof, and you can use a fine paintbrush if you wish, and you can pick a little bit of this up, and you can use the bleed proof, and that is exactly what it says on the tin. Let's bring a little bit to the lid. Actually, I should just bring a bit on here. A little bit of, there we go. So, in other words, this doesn't take on any of the colour in the background. So, it's entirely up to you which of the white you want to add. You need a nice fine paintbrush, just so that you can add the detail to your florals. Again, you can use your Posca pen. It is entirely up to you what you use. But when I'm using it on this grey, this bleed proof won't take on that grey. So it works rather nicely. I don't like to come in too heavy-handed though. I'm going to pick up a little bit of that white and just add a little bit of that white down here. There's hardly anything on my brush. Let's pick a little bit more up. But that fine brush really helps. Just give a little bit of a movement to that vase. And these are the bits that you should sort of take a little bit of time on. You know, you want to spend time on those little bits and pieces. You don't want to rush them. You want to take your time. But that fine brush really does the trick. I can just add a little bit of lightness just with that bleed proof. You can see I'm picking it up. You can take the extra off and then just there we go, just to give a little bit of lightness across there. I might do a little bit more. I need to stop faffing. Honestly, I could go on forever. I just love doing it. The other thing this is good for, let's pick some up. There we go. Let's get a nice blob there. I can never get the lid on straight. I'm hopeless. And now I'm so hot. So the other thing that the bleed proof is good for is to add your splatters, because then your splatters stay that white colour. A fan brush is better because you'll add those splatters. So let me grab the fan brush. Let's grab a little bit more water. I find this goes everywhere more than my Posca pen, but let's just take off the excess, and then I can just add some splatters. So they're just very fine splatters. I'll show you when I pick the page up. But I don't get the Posca pen going anywhere. If I do that, I get it going everywhere. So let's just leave that in a wet wipe so that those don't dry out. And then we'll add some Posca pen, just because I have to, because it's a habit. And what I'm going to do now is give everything a good dry before I sort of try to remove anything. Being mindful that I've got embossing on there. And because I've got that embossing on there, I need to make sure I sort of move the heat tool around. There we go. I don't know what word I'm putting on there yet, but we'll decide that after. And then we'll just take our low tack tape off, like so. And for once, I've actually taken it off in the right order. And it sort of stands out more when you've got that border around there. So when I've got that border around there, everything sort of pops a little bit more, I feel. It pops quite nicely. So what do I want? I was going to put some texture paste, but I don't know whether I am actually. No. I'm just going to put, you know, a prominent word on there. But I don't know what that word is. I'll know it when I see it. There we go. So I'm going to use TE13 and I'm going to use the text A Quiet Place, because there's just something about that text that I love. So I'm just going to grab a piece of scrap card. And I've actually got a piece of scrap card. I'm going to use my Nocturne ink. I love looking back on the pages. So we shall just cut our text out. There we go. Can bring this in. We can just add a quiet place just down here. So we'll just adhere that. I'll just give that a few moments as well to adhere, just so that I don't try and add the grey at the bottom whilst it's still moving. I spend longer putting this in sometimes than really is necessary. That's it. So we'll just give this a few moments just to sort of harden off, if you like, just before we add that little bit of shading. But you can see where I added the dark edge, it really sort of makes everything pop, which I really like. I really like that. There's the grey intense pencil. So let's just add a little bit of grey under there, and our brush, just so that we can blend that. I've always got kitchen roll on the side in case I just add a little too much water, for instance. There we go. Just so that that pops against the background really nicely. I'm going to lift this up, and apart from the word itself, the only thing that's got any dimension is the word. Everything else is flat, so which is perfect for our journal. Really, that's what we want. So I'm just going to, honestly, I feel a little bit of me. I'm going to come in and I'm just going to add. There's still an option for me to add a little bit more of that crimson red, which is PC924, because as always I've not come in too strongly, so I can still come in with a little bit of that red and still make it a little bit more prominent. So I love that if you just add the layers lightly, you can come in and just add more layers if you wish. And that's what I love about just sort of gently adding the colours. Just going to add a little bit more of that yellow. And still, we can still use our Posca pen, especially if you don't lose it or don't put it somewhere that is right by you here, Tracy. That's what you call dangerous. And I can still come in, and because nothing has been added too strongly, I can still add a little bit more white if I want. You can still come in and still add a little bit more of the white. There we go. But I'm quite happy with that. So we've got a lovely page now. The problem with me is I can't stop faffing, but I love that, and it coordinates beautifully with the previous page. It works really nicely. So I'm really pleased with that. So I hope you enjoy creating that for your journal as well. I hope you enjoy it. If you want the florals to have even more dimension, I mean, I will go in a minute, you can add a little bit of your Inktense pencil just at the bottom. Honestly, I hope it's not just me that does this. I'm going really. No, you know. But you can add a little, too much moisture. You can add a little bit of shading just to the bottom of each little floral, and just tickle that a little bit with some water, just to give a little bit more dimension to your flower head, so you can sort of, even though they're not cut out, you can use a little touch of water. You can see I've not re-watered anything, and you can just bring a little bit more dimension to each little poppy head with a little touch of shading. I'm going now because I won't stop, but you can add a little bit more dimension to that by adding a little bit of shading. So I hope you've enjoyed that, and I hope you'll give that a go. Lots of love, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.